Hey everybody and welcome back to some more Feed the Beast Infinity Evolved Skyblock. Last episode we set up this big reactor over here which is capable of producing just over 10,000 redstone flux per tick, and as you can probably tell since the end of last episode I've tweaked the reactor a little bit. I've added another reactor access port. This time I have set it to output. You can do that by just right clicking with a crescent hammer onto an access port to switch its configuration. This one is going to be used for importing the Elorium, and then this one is going to be used for exporting all of the cyanide so that our system doesn't get backed up. And then over here I've also added a reactor redstone port that we're going to use to automatically turn the reactor on and off based on some other factors that we're going to get into later on in today's episode, because in today's episode I do want to work on automating the big reactor a little bit. But before we do that, I do want to work on getting this setup over here up and running. So I showed this off last episode. It's not working right now because we don't have power hooked up, but what I've done between episodes is set up this little system over here, which doesn't look like a whole lot, but took a little bit of time to make because both the pulverizer and the redstone furnace, if you look at the top there in Whaler, are resonant versions of the pulverizer and the redstone furnace, with all three of the speed augments installed so that they can run as fast as possible. And over here we've got ourselves an auto compressor with an ME export bus. It's got 2 capacity cards in, allowing it to use all 9 of the slots within the ME export bus. Right now we've only got broken ores in here, all the ores you get from sifting gravel, and I'm not quite sure how I want to set this up. My original plan was going to be to duplicate this setup here, like the pulverizer, the redstone furnace, the export bus, and the compressor 2 more times. This one was going to be dedicated to all of the ores that you get from gravel. I was going to have one dedicated to all of the ores that you get from sand, and then finally one for dust as well. However, that would use a ridiculous amount of power. Already, just the pulverizer and the redstone furnace use 1,200 redstone flux per tick. This thing uses 800, and the redstone furnace uses 400, and then the compressor uses 5. So 1,205 redstone flux per tick just for this little setup here. If I was to do that 2 more times, that would be 3,015 redstone flux per tick, and then we also need a 4th redstone furnace as well for the Elorium and for the aluminium, because you can't pulverize those. They have to go directly to the redstone furnace, and so that combined with the 2,000 redstone flux per tick being used by all of these auto-compressed hammers and sieves and compressors over here would result in a system that used about 5,000 to 6,000 redstone flux per tick, which by the way is like 20,000 to 25,000 redstone flux per second, which is a little bit ridiculous. And so what I'm going to try and do, at least to start with here, I'm going to try and get away with just having the 1 redstone furnace and the 1 pulverizer, and we're going to see if the system can keep up. If it can keep up, we will add either another ME export bus to this compressor for all of the stuff that you get from sifting sand and sifting dust. If the compressor can't keep up, we might put down a 2nd or 3rd compressor and then just pump everything into the pulverizer and the redstone furnace. But before we can do any of that, we need to know if the system can keep up with just the stuff coming from the gravel, and to do that we need to actually hook all of these machines up with power. And so the first thing that we are going to do in today's episode is we are going to get ourselves 2 Tesseract. So like I mentioned last episode, I have taught my system how to make Tesseracts. Thankfully it's not too hard to make, and I think we have everything it takes to make 2 of them. We do. There are a lot of items here. I'm not quite sure how long that's going to take, but whilst that's doing that, I will quickly show you the recipe for the Tesseract here. This bit of the recipe was super easy, just 4 silver and 4 bronze. However, I did have to teach my system how to make bronze in the induction smelter with 3 copper and 1 tin. The Tesseract frame full was also super easy, just 4 ender pearls, and the Tesseract frame empty sent to the fluid transposer and the magma crucible. The Tesseract frame empty is where things got a little bit complicated. It requires 4 endrium ingots, which is fine. Our system knows how to make those. I did have to teach it how to make the 2 octadic capacitors, which are a little bit pricey, but both the Tesseract and, in fact, the octadic capacitor here require the ender electron tubes, and that's where problems arise as of right now, because to make the ender electron tubes, you need endstone, and although we are making quite a lot of endstone downstairs for the draconian sifting, which, by the way, is doing incredibly well. I put a chest here because this thing was almost full last time I came down, and if you're wondering why we've got glowstone down here in the bottom left, that is all of the glowstone that we have left. Our system has just burned through every single piece of glowstone. There is nothing left in this chest. There is nothing left apart from, like, I think a few blocks in the AE system, and so all the glowstone that we have left is now in this chest. I put it in there just in case we need to use it for some kind of crafting recipe at some point during today's episode, but hopefully once we get all this stuff back online, we'll start getting a decent amount of glowstone again, and we shouldn't have to worry about about that too much, but as I was saying, right now our system doesn't know how to make endstone, which is something that I would like to automate between episodes. I also want to automate, like I mentioned, I think last episode, the production of obsidian and the production of netherrack, so our system can get those items if it does need it. But for now, is it done making those tesseracts? It is not anywhere near done. Wow, it is going to take probably quite a while. It does need to make some redstone chipsets. I think the longest part might actually be these intricate circuit boards. I'm not quite sure why, but for some reason, the carpenters over here are taking forever to actually make anything. Like, this thing here is really, really slow. It takes quite a while to make one intricate circuit board. The redstone chipsets are coming along just fine, so everything, for the most part, is doing okay. So whilst we wait for those to craft up, I do want to automate the big reactor a little bit. And the simplest way to do that is to put an export bus on the reactor import access port, and then an export bus on the reactor output, so that we can both export yellorium and then import all of the cyanide. And we are going to do that because that's going to allow us to make sure the big reactor is always running when we need it to run. But there is also some more automation that I want to do with the redstone tap, and essentially what we're going to do there is we're going to try and turn our big reactor off once we have a certain amount of power. And we're going to do that with a block from RF Tools called the RF Monitor, which we'll get to in just a second. Let me quickly grab another one of these import buses. Let me stick the import bus onto the export, and then we'll put the export on the import there. Let's make sure this is set to export yellorium. Right now our system isn't producing yellorium, but like I said before, once we get that up and running, we should be getting a decent amount of yellorium, hopefully more than the system is using, so we'll stick that in there. I don't think we have to specify that we want to extract cyanide. I think it will do that all on its own. And then let me quickly hook this up with some ME glass fiber cable. And then once I've done that, that should now start to fill this up with yellorium, which it is. That's going to fill up to 64 and make sure the big reactor always has a decent supply of yellorium. And then this one is going to pull out all the cyanide once it's done. So we can now go ahead and turn this on, ready for the Tesseracts, which hopefully are somewhat close to being done. Kind of. We're still waiting on more of those intricate circuit boards. It's going to take a little bit of time for it to do all of the stuff with the magma crucible and the fluid transposer. And so let's look at the RF monitor here real quick. So the RF monitor is an item from RF Tools which allows you to monitor the amount of redstone flux in nearby energy storage blocks, like the energy cells from thermal expansion, the capacitor banks from Ender.io, and I think even the Draconic Evolution energy ball, although don't quote me on that, I haven't tested that one out. And essentially it will output a redstone signal depending on how you configure it. So you can configure it to send out a redstone signal when you get too much redstone flux, or when you get too little redstone flux, or you can just set it to not do anything at all if you'd like. Kind of pointless, but we're going to use this in conjunction with some vibrant capacitor banks from Ender.io. The reason why I'm going to use the capacitor banks instead of the energy cells from thermal expansion is that you can add multiple capacitor banks together. You can put down multiple next to each other, and they form into one big multi-block that can hold just a ton of power. And you can also charge your items with inside of the capacity banks. And so for charging up the jet plate that we've got, I think putting it in a capacity bank would be much easier than trying to do it in the energetic infuser, which is what we've been doing up until now. And so we're going to need to make a couple of these vibrant capacitor banks. Thankfully, they're not too hard to make. We do need to make quite a lot of the octadic capacitors. These are almost done. So let's go ahead and request, for now, I'm just going to make enough for one vibrant capacitor, and then I'll go away and make a few more of these, probably between episodes. But for this, we're going to need 4 electrical steel, 4 octadic capacitors, and then 1 vibrant crystal. So our system does know how to, of course, make the octadic capacitors. We can go ahead and request 4 of those. What are we missing? We are missing glowstone, which is why I had some lying around. I guess what I'm going to have to do real quick here is just disconnect this for the time being so it stops exporting to this chest, which means we can go ahead and drop this glowstone back into our system like so. That is going to allow us to craft up these octadic capacitors. I'm actually quite surprised that the system managed to make the glowstone, managed to make the Tesseract without having any glowstone just then, but I guess we already had some of those octadic capacitors lying around. Let's go ahead and request some of the electrical steel. We'll take 4 of those, and then as for the vibrant crystal, for this, we need 4 enderium nuggets, 4 vibrant alloy nuggets. We might have both of those already. We don't have any enderium, so let me go ahead and request a few enderium ingots, and then we should also go ahead and request some vibrant alloy if we don't have any already, which we don't. So let's go ahead and I guess request 2 of those as well. Whilst those are crafting up, I think we are done with the Tesseracts. Let me check here real quick. Tesseract, we are. So let's take both of those. We're going to put one of them down for now directly onto the power output tap over here on the big reactor. We'll set this to frequency like, I guess, 800, just because we have other people on the server. I don't want that to clash, and we will call this Isaac Power 1. and then in brackets, big reactor, like so. Nice. All right, so we'll tick that off. We'll add that frequency, and we'll set redstone to ignored, and we're going to set this to do nothing with items, nothing with fluids, and we're going to set it to send only for energy, because we don't want it to receive energy, we just want it to send it. And then over here, we're going to throw down our other Tesseract. I think for now, I'm just going to plug it down right about here underneath the chest. That's going to allow all of these here to get powered, so we'll put that down there. We'll hook it up to Isaac Power 1, give that a tick. We want this to do nothing with fluids, nothing with items, and just to receive energy. That should go ahead and start to power both of these. It is doing, and now we need to run power to all of these over here. So for all of these machines, I've used leadstone flux ducts, like I mentioned before, because none of these machines individually use more than 200 redstone flux per tick. The most expensive machines use 40 redstone flux per tick, and so there is really no point in using a higher tier flux duct than the leadstone energy flux duct. However, the way that the flux ducts work is that they can take in or send out 200 redstone flux at either end. And so, for example, if I was to grab just one leadstone flux duct from within my system and then just try and hook it up over here, that would work, but it would not transfer enough redstone flux. Because what this is doing now, and let me quickly turn the player sounds off so I don't hear that jetpack sound in the background, but essentially, what this is going to do here is this is going to input 200 and then try and output 2000. And so instead what we have to do is something like this. We put another one here, that's going to now input 400, 200 on each one, and then try and output 2000. And so, we need to put down about 10 of these hooked up to some redstone energy flux ducts, or just a higher tier of flux ducts. I think for the time being, we've got a few hardened, which would work, and we've got a few resonant, which would also work a little bit. So what I'm thinking we do here is I'm thinking we run the hardened ones along like this, 2, 4, 6, 8. If we put down 4 of them, that's going to max out the hardened flux duct. So if we do that, that's going to max that out. You know, I'm going to push this along just by one more so we can move this over to here. And you might think this is a bit like over the top, we don't really need to do this, but it's just a way of saving on resources. We'll also then, I guess, do something, this is gonna look real weird, but we're gonna do something like this, and then we're gonna kind of wrap the leadstone flux ducts around this. We might need a few more, because that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That's 1,000 redstone flux per tick, which is going to start getting a few of these machines online, but it's not enough to keep all of them running. You'll notice that a few of them are not quite getting the power they need, especially the ones that are quite far away from the source. And so, if we come back over here real quick and grab some more leadstone flux ducts, and it looks like I've accidentally turned NEI off. For those who are unaware, you press O on your keyboard by default to turn NEI on or off. So let's get some more of these leadstone flux ducts. We should be able to make those fairly easily. We do need some more of these redstone chipsets. So let's go ahead and I guess request like 30 of those, because we're going to need them for all kinds of stuff during today's episode as well. And one thing that we are going to end up upgrading in today's episode is this laser system, because right now it's pretty slow. We do have 32 lasers, but when you want to craft the higher tier items, for example, the RF monitor from RF Tools, you need to have a machine frame. Like, the recipe here looks really easy, but the machine frame requires a resonant machine frame from thermal expansion, which of course requires 50 million redstone flux per tick. And with our current setup, it takes about 30-40 minutes to actually create, if these are all running at max speed, which as you can see, they are not. So we are going to tinker with that a little bit in today's episode. But before we get around to that, let's grab a few more of these leadstone flux ducts. And basically what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to kind of wrap them around this resonant flux duct. I'm going to do this as well, because that's going to give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that should be transferring 2,000 redstone flux per tick. We do want to make sure it's connected, but we don't need to have one right there. I'm going to put one more down. Actually, I'm going to put 2 more down just to be, you know, I'm going to put 3 more down. I'm going to do that just to be on the safe side. So we're now transferring about 2,600 redstone flux per tick into this system using only the leadstone flux ducts. And so you can see now all of these should be filling up on power fairly quickly. This one is going down. It's doing it slowly, but it looks like overall it is actually slowly rising, and so it should eventually fill up and just be using like a little bit off the top there. So these should all fill up over the course of like the next hour or so. But now the system is online. Everything is being pumped in, and so this should now actually be working. Is this doing stuff? It is. Is it fast enough? It doesn't look like it is, unfortunately. I have also put aluminium in here, which is not what I wanted to do. Where is the aluminium? It's there. We'll take that out because that is just going to back the system up to no end. Do we have any aluminium left in here? We do not. Cool. All right. So it looks like, unfortunately, this is not managing to keep up with the system, although it looks like our bottleneck right now is the redstone furnace. And so what I might do is put down another redstone furnace on top of this, just because the redstone furnace uses a lot less power than the pulverizer. And so setting up another pulverizer and redstone furnace over here would use a lot more power than just putting down another redstone furnace. So I will probably look into doing that. Thankfully, the power is keeping up, which is nice. But unfortunately, it looks like this is not quite going to be able to keep up. It's kind of just keeping up right about now. Like, it's managing to get through these about as fast as the compressor can give it to them. But overall, are we actually gaining broken ore? Because that's really the question. If we're losing more than we're gaining, then this is good. But right now, we've got 3,144, 3,145. It looks like we're still gaining broken ores of all the varieties. So what I'll do is I will leave this running for the remainder of today's episode. If we come back and we've just got a ton more ores in the system, then I will probably have to duplicate this a few more times to be able to process everything. But I'll keep an eye on it between episodes, see if it does a good enough job. If it doesn't, we'll tweak it a little bit, and I'll come back next episode with a new setup. If it does manage to keep up, we'll also come back with a new setup, probably with like another redstone furnace or something like that. We should really quickly grab ourselves another item duct here so we can start importing all of those ingots into the system, because otherwise that is going to back up real quick. We don't have any item ducts. That is fine. We can make another one like so, and then we can just stick that down right about there. To be honest, we probably don't need this many interfaces, and we could save on channels by getting rid of this one and I guess this one, and just having everything pump around into the one interface in the middle there. And you know what? I might actually do that. If we do this, and then if we just get rid of that, hook it up with some more cable like so. It's going to mean that these have to travel a little bit further to get where they need to go, but like I said, it's going to save us on channels, and we are kind of getting a little bit tight on channels right now, mostly because I don't have a P2P tunnel set up for all the stuff over here. This is kind of just connected to my main line of the applied logistics system, but we'll fix that later on down the line. For now, I want to work on this thing over here. So, like I mentioned just a second ago, in order to make the RF monitor that's going to allow us to automate our big reactor, we need to get a machine frame resonant. And to get this, we need to use our assembly table with 50 million redstone flux per tick. Now, right now, we've only got 32 of these lasers, each of which can do 40 redstone flux per tick, and so we're not producing that much, and it's going to take about 30 minutes for us to make each and every one of these resonant machine frames. And if we again look forward ahead a little bit to some of the creative items, which again we're not making now, but we are going to want to make later on down the line, for example the creative portable tank, this thing requires a bunch of this ender tank glass, which require the resonant machine frames, and so we are going to have to make quite a lot of these over the course of the series. And if it takes 30 minutes to make each and every one, it is going to take a ridiculous amount of time to make stuff like this. And so what I want to do here real quick is redo the system with one that has a bunch more lasers. And so what I'm going to do here, guys, real quick, I'm going to go away, I'm going to make, I think, probably about 100 more lasers, and set them all up, some on the floor, some on the ceiling right about here, hook them all up with probably some redstone energy flux ducts if we have enough resources to make them all, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, so finally, a crazy number of redstone energy flux ducts later, and we finally have our new laser setup. Flipping heck, look at this. Wow, it took so long to make. And it took so many of our diamonds as well. How many do we have left now? We have got 149 diamonds. We had just over 600, I believe. I think some of them might still be over here in... Yeah, we got quite a lot of reds. We got 3 more, I guess, over here. So let me quickly go ahead and just dump all of this stuff. Yeah, we'll dump all of that into the system for now, and we'll pull that back out as we need it. But essentially, what I've done here is we've got 2 sets of 9x9 lasers, each of which is producing 40 redstone flux per tick, and in total is producing about 6,500 redstone flux per tick. And so if we now, for example, wanted to make a machine frame resonant, it would take about 5 minutes, about 5 or 6 minutes, as opposed to 30 minutes, which is still a really long time considering how many lasers we have, but it's significantly better than 30 minutes a piece. So all we need to do now is actually hook this up to power. Now, I made 6 more of these resonant flux ducts because these can transfer up to 32,000 redstone flux per tick, whereas the redstone ones can only transfer 8,000. That 8,000 is fine for the lasers because, like I mentioned before, they use about 6,500, but the big reactor is producing 10,000, and so if I just put a normal redstone flux duct there, we wouldn't be able to pull out the full 10,000 to use with the Tesseract. So I'll put that back there. We're then going to run... I guess we'll use these resonant flux ducts going down here just because we have them. We're going to run them down all the way through here. We do need to... Actually, I guess we can just dig around it. I was going to move that cable, but we can probably just do this and then go down and down. We'll hook that up there like so, and then we'll run these down. I should have a few more of them in my fluid transporter. We do. We might need to put a little bit more redstone into the magmatic dynamo. This was kind of painfully slow because there were no speed upgrades in either the magma crucible or the fluid transporter, so it took quite a while to make all of these. I requested that my system make 162 of these redstone energy flux ducts to cover all of these lasers here, and it took flipping forever. We can get rid of this seed analyzer for now, and we can run these along and up like so, and then hopefully we will have just enough. Oh, we might be a little... Oh, no, we're perfect. There we go. All right. So we should now be sending power to all of these lasers, and so now, if we grab all of the items for the resonant machine frame, we should be able to make one within the space of the next 5 minutes. So, what else do we need here? We've got an enderium gear. We need a dense, refined iron plate. I'm fairly certain we don't have one, but our system does know how to make it, so we'll go ahead and we'll ask for one of those. Whilst that's doing that, we need another intricate circuit board, so that's going to take another 400 years because those carpenters are just ridiculously slow. Crushed obsidian, I'm also pretty sure we don't have, but we can request. We'll take 2 of those. We also use a lot of obsidian in that crafting recipe to make all those lasers. Thankfully, we had more than enough obsidian to make it all happen. And then finally, we need a redstone emerald chipset. We have not yet taught our system how to make that, and so we are going to have to make that by hand. That is fine. Let's just grab this, and this is really going to be our first test here. So how much redstone flux does it take to make one of these? It takes 1.2 million redstone flux, so quite a bit. If we put you and you in there and then click on that, that should start to drag power from all of these. I'm hoping that they all ramp up to blue. We should be producing enough power in our big reactor to power all of these simultaneously. They might not have enough time to all get to blue, but it looks like they just about did. I think there was one over there that didn't quite make it to blue, but we did get the emerald chipset, and also a bunch of people pointed out quite a while back that you don't have to have a chest that you then pipe into the ME interface. The assembly table will just output directly into the ME interface and then drop all that stuff directly into the ME system. So we can take you. Is the intricate circuit done? Circuit done. It is. We'll take that. Is the crushed obsidian done? It should be. We'll take that. And then what was the last piece? It was the dense refined iron plate, which might not actually be done yet. No, it's not, because it has to make all the refined iron first and then make all the plates. And it looks like it is actually now done though. So let's have a look. Dense refined iron plate. We will take you. And now if we throw all of this together into our assembly table, it should start to craft up at a reasonably slow speed. Like, it's going to be slow, but it's going to be faster than it was before. Oh my goodness, that is the thumbnail right there. Flipping heck. Alright, so whilst I was waiting for all of the redstone energy flux ducts, I came and took a look again back over at this. And I've added another redstone furnace here, which is now going to pump through up and into here. And you can see it's kind of calmed down a little bit. Still, don't worry about the cobblestone over there. That's doing fine. But it's kind of calmed down a little bit. I think mostly because we've gone through the backlog. I love looking at this, by the way. I love all the stuff just being pumped into the ME interface here. But if we come back over to our crafting table now, and also I did have to repair my hatchet at some point, so we'll get rid of that. But if we come back over here now and type in broken, the only broken ores that we have in abundance are the yellorium and the aluminium. So the system has just taken all of the other stuff and gone through it fairly quickly, actually. It's managed to process all of them, and now it's managing to keep up with them just fine. And so I think what we're going to be able to do is if we grab another compressor, we should, I think, be able to put another compressor down right about there. We'll, of course, put another item duct on that, and that's going to pump around into the pulverizer as well. And then we'll put a third compressor on after this one, and we'll put 3 export buses on. We'll have one for the gravel sifting, one for the sand sifting, and one for the dust sifting. And I think that after the initial kind of massive amount of dusts that we've managed to accumulate through the backlog, after it's processed all of those, I think it should be able to keep up with all 3 of these auto compressors fairly easily. So what I'm going to do now, guys, I'm going to go away real quick. I'm going to wait until this is done. You can see it's getting there. Not incredibly slowly, considering it takes 50 million redstone flux in order for this to craft, and usually it would have taken us 30 minutes, and I think at the beginning of the series, it might have taken us a few hours. I'm not quite sure, but hopefully this will be done within the next, like, 4 or 5 minutes. Once that's done, we'll come back, and we'll use that to automate the big reactor. Whilst I'm waiting for that, I'm going to invest in 2 more auto compressors, some more of these export buses. I'm going to set all this stuff up, see if the system can keep up with it, and I'll be back in a second. And again, not too long later, the mass of lasers is now done. Just a quick heads up, if you're going to try doing this at home, this is extremely laggy, and you will most certainly drop a ton of frames. My frame rate got a little bit wonky there whilst all those lasers run, but hopefully it's going to be a little better now. But we do now have the resonant machine frame, and so we can go ahead and make ourselves the RF monitor from RF Tools, not the FR monitor, the RF monitor from RF Tools. The machine frame is just some stone around the resonant machine frame, and then we can use that to get ourselves the RF monitor, which for now, I guess we can put right about there. And essentially, the way this is going to work, if we grab like some cobblestone and stick this down right about there, do we have any red alloy wire in our system? We do. So, the way this is going to work, we're going to put this down right there, and we're going to say to the system, if we're going to go into the reactor power port here, and we're going to say toggle the reactor on and off. That's what the job of this redstone port is going to be, and we're going to set from signal. You can toggle from pulse. We're going to set from signal, and we're going to commit. So right now, I believe this is going to be off, and essentially, the way this is going to work is when the power in our power storage, which we don't quite have just yet, but we're going to get in just a second, once the power in our power storage reaches a certain amount, the redstone signal is going to do what it's doing now. It's going to turn off, and that's going to turn off the reactor. And then whilst we're below a certain threshold in our system, so whilst we don't quite have enough power, whilst we're still gaining power and we've still got space to store that power, we're going to want this redstone signal to be on. So let me get rid of this real quick. Let me reset that just so that we can turn this back on, because we do need to use our system for the time being. Let's go ahead and make at least one of the vibrant capacitor banks that we were going to make earlier in today's episode. I've gone ahead and made sure we have all the stuff. We've got all of the octane capacitors, we've got all of the electrical steel, we have the ingots to make the vibrant alloys, as well as the enderium nuggets, so let's go ahead and grab those. And I also went over to my thermionic fabricators and got 4 of these emerald electron tubes, so let's go ahead and make one of these vibrant crystals, and then use that vibrant crystal to make one of these vibrant capacitor banks. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to put down the capacitor bank right about there. We're going to move the Tesseract for a second, so all the power is going to come out and go into here. I kind of wanted to go through the capacitor bank, so we're going to have everything go through this capacitor bank and then down into all the other stuff. So you can see right now it's gaining 12,000. That's just because this thing has an internal buffer. Once that internal buffer has run down to 0, it'll go back down to around 10,000 redstone flux per tick. It should be 10,400 and something, or 10,360 something redstone flux per tick. That's how much it should be receiving. And if we come over to here right now, you can see it's finding all of the items that can carry or contain redstone flux in the nearby area. We want it to focus on the vibrant capacitor, and we want to say if it's got less than, let's say, 75% in its capacity, then we want a redstone signal to be emitted. So we're going to put that down there, like, oh, we can't put it on top. Do I have to have this come out of the side? Oh, no. Okay, so it totally works. Okay, so for some reason, it didn't work with the red alloy wire, but I've replaced this with normal redstone. You'll see right now we're about to drop to about 75%. We're just under 18 million. As soon as it drops below 75%, it turns the big reactor on for a brief second just to take it back above 75% to 18 million. And so it's going to kind of stay in this weird limbo where it just goes on and off very quickly. You'll see the big reactor is not on for a very long period of time, and I don't quite know if this is going to be fuel efficient or not, but it's going to mean that we'll always have at least 18 million in this capacitor bank. What I will probably do between episodes is add some more capacitor banks, like I'll put one below it, and then probably spread out underneath as well, so we have, maybe I think I'm going to go for 4, so that we can hold 100 million redstone flux in one big multi-block capacitor bank with 4 of these vibrant capacitor banks, and I'm going to have it so that every time that it drops below 75 million, it's going to turn the reactor on. Then when it goes above 75 million, it's going to turn the reactor back off. Like I said, not quite sure if this is going to be super efficient, but I think in the long run it is definitely going to save us some yellorium. Whether or not it's as, like, it might be more efficient to just leave it running, but I think still we're going to save yellorium by having this setup. That sounds like a really weird sentence, because you'd assume with it being less efficient it would use more yellorium, but I think the power that we would waste not having this system would cost us more yellorium in the long term. I have gone ahead and stuck down an export bus on here, which is currently exporting all of this stuff. It's having a bit of an issue when it tries to figure out which, like, compressor to give access to first, because what it's doing is it's putting all the stuff from this auto compressor in, and then it looks like it's waiting for this to empty out before it moves in stuff from this compressor, which is not the best, because this one is not really ever emptying out. It's always got at least one that it can send around. I might have to invest in faster item ducts, because it looks like the problem here is the item ducts. Like, they're not, the pulverizer is pulverizing these fast enough stuff, we could do with faster item ducts on. So I'm thinking I might, for the first time ever, make some of the warp item ducts here that can actually transfer items instantly. So in order to make those, they do require power, I believe. Yeah, it uses redstone flux. So if we make ourselves some more of these normal item ducts and combine them up with an endrium ingot, that is going to allow us to transfer the items instantly if we give them some power. So you know what? Let's get rid of this. And, oh gosh, I need to invest in a magnet, actually, because I'm moving so much stuff that it's just directly above the void, and we're just losing a ton of stuff because I don't have a magnet on me. But let's do this and this. I don't know if that's going to be enough power to keep it going. It looks like it might be, but I guess, do we have any more? We should have some more redstone energy conduits. Let's have a look. Flux duct. We've got some hardened ones. I'm fairly certain that we should have at least one redstone energy flux duct still in here. We don't! What the heck? We need to put more redstone in. How much more redstone do we need? We just need that one more redstone. That's going to get us that. And now we've got this redstone energy flux duct, we can get rid of this and I guess replace it with this? Like that? That's hopefully should be able to give that more than enough power. And now, if we stick our servos there and there, I'm hoping that's going to move those instantly. So you saw that went instantly from there into the pulverizer. And so my plan now is that is going to make sure that this is empty at some point. So that is now actually empty, and so it should start. There we go. Look, it pulled one from there finally. It pulled a pretty big stack from there, which means this is going to build up quite a bit, and so it's going to take longer to pull out all that stuff next time. But like I said, eventually, the amount of stuff that we have in here will die down. At that point, I will add the third and final compressor to the mix, which is going to have all of the crushed variants in. I didn't add that right away because I thought that would just be a massive flipping mess trying to add two at the same time. But I think that these warp item ducts are the way to go. But yeah, with that, guys, I'm going to end this episode of Feed the Beast Infinity Evolved Skyblock there. As always, if you did enjoy the video, be sure to like, leave a comment down below, and I will see you guys next time.